Here we go. Are we live? Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. All right.
We're live.
We're live. I think there's a slight delay.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. Oh, and I see Carrie Gregerson is watching. Woohoo!
Hey.
All right. We want a few more people joining us. Oh, we have 3 people watching. It's probably you, me, and Carrie.
Can you see my present? That's amazing.
All right. Well, why don't we wait maybe just another minute or two and hope that we get some more folks. Oh, I see Annette is with us. Hello, Annette and Sherry.
Hold on.
It is exciting. Oh, and I see. Oh, I didn't hear.
Hi.
Hi.
Ooh. What's up, guys? We had some Facebook technical difficulties and we have overcome them.
And we're here, and this is exciting. So welcome.
This is exciting. And before we even get started, let's quickly tell you that Heather and I are wearing the same dress this evening.
Because we are crazy cat ladies, and we do love our leopard print and other cat-like prints. So
You can't really see.
so we're twinning, but for those of you who do know both Meg and I, Meg is very, very tall and I'm very, very short. So if we're looking at twins, that makes me Danny DeVito, sadly.
Short mega.
All right.
Big hulking muscles. That's not a very flattering thing. We'll have to come up with it. We shouldn't wear these dresses together at the same time ever.
No, just for tonight.
maybe
It's
we
special. It's special. Maybe. All right. Oh, and I see Auntie Beth and Uncle Mark are watching. That's great. That's my sister and my brother-in-law. Thank you. Oh, and my Aunt Dots. Lots of family supporting here. Love this. Well, should we jump in and hope we get some more folks started as we do our introductions?
I vote yes.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this perfectly amazing cat journey. Meg and I are co-founders of the Stick Figure Arts Collective, and we first met many years ago in a freshman year art class, and I dropped out, which now is rather ironic. We reconnected at our 10-year high school reunion and have continued to bond over the years, obviously over cats, art, music, and midlife issues. Meg is a fierce kitty advocate and has worked with the Feral Cat Coalition of Oregon and has even done some trap and release work because she's totally badass and my hero. Meg is also a dancer, and I think that we need to have her dance for us during one of our shows, and ideally to some good 80s new wave music. I am Heather. I've been called a crazy cat lady, which I suppose there are worse things these days. In my 20 years of adulthood, I've had up to 5 cats and as few as 1. Over the years, I have volunteered at Paws Chicago and personally rescued 4 cats, taking 2 out of the forest and 2 out of the city streets. Fun fact, I don't know if any of you knew this, but a group of cats is called a clouder. I personally prefer Pride, and my current Pride has 2 cats I've adopted from Feline Rescue, which is a fantastic rescue organization here in St. Paul. I am a huge advocate of adopting shelter cats, and we will share the favorite rescue organizations of all of our artists at the end of the show. And speaking of cats that need rescuing, Meg, how hot is Portland right now?
It is like a million. About
So
108.
108, that's crazy. So we just came out of a 2-week 90+ degree snap too. And just a reminder for everybody, if you are in a place where you are able to, and it's very hot, please put some fresh, clean water outside for our little animal friends. The feral kitties and also the trash cats like raccoons and opossums will be very grateful, and so will we.
Trash pandas. And A lot of people are talking about like putting water out just for like bugs. The bumbles and everybody else needs the water too, especially out here. So Portland is in a fierce heat wave, breaking all kinds of records. It's exciting. It was 90 degrees by 10 this morning, and our peak heat usually hits right about now. And we were, last I checked, we were on track for 112 today, and it'll be 115 tomorrow. So wish me luck.
Don't melt. Don't melt.
24 hours. And so, yeah, it's like Vegas outside for real. Like your skin just goes on fire when you walk out the door. So it is hot. And this is a very different summer for us out here in Portland. And speaking of different, we are super excited to welcome 4 new artists to the Stick Figure Arts Collective for our 3rd virtual show. And tonight we proudly introduce Jennifer Carpenter, Rubie Kelly, Diane Savino, and Suzanne Shepherd, as well as welcoming back our co-founder and delightful co-host, Heather Humbert.
Thank you.
So our first artist tonight is Jennifer Carpenter.
So Jennifer is an absolutely incredible colored pencil artist hailing from Christiansburg, Virginia. And first things first, I know you are all wondering, and I'm going to move this if I can, so you can see him better. Who is this beautiful chunky calico? And I'm sorry, it's a her. This is Jennifer's cat, Iris. Iris was born without eyes and rescued from a storm drain before a local cat rescue posted her pickup for adoption. And Jennifer knew no one would be likely to adopt her, so she did. And she shares that Iris is a great cat. She navigates the house just fine. And as we can see, she has no problem finding the food bowl. Jennifer also has Zazie, who's featured towards the end of our show with all of the other stick figure cats. Zazie showed up in the school parking lot right before Christmas break when Jennifer was a special ed teacher, and nobody had claimed her, even though everyone had seemed to have stories about this cat showing up and stealing dog food and hanging around. So Jennifer took her home. So those are some really sweet gotcha stories. But going back to the real star, Jennifer has been creating colored pencil work for 40 years. She shared a process which involves working the pencil layer over layer so colors shine through other colors, and works until the surface of the paper has been completely covered, as is the case in the first 2 pieces. The 3rd piece she shared, it's a little less saturated in color and allows the paper to show through. Recently, she started utilizing an Icarus board, a heated surface specifically designed for colored pencil artists to heat the papers as the artist works. And it allows the wax base in the pencils to be manipulated and blended in a more painterly manner. She especially enjoys creating the illusion of glass, dazzling reflections, weathered surfaces, and water drops. So really all those textures that we'll see in her work, her ability to capture tiny details of what draws the viewer to look a lot more closely at her work. So let's move right into Jennifer's work.
An Icarus board. That's interesting.
Why is we're not advancing? Let's go
Man.
next. Oh, there we are. Woo.
So the first piece by Jennifer is called Do You Mind?
And it has some catitude as well as a great use of chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro is the contrast of light and shadow from a certain direction. So we kind of see it coming in there. The lighting here to me is reminiscent of that scene in the paintings by the likes of Rembrandt, Vermeer, or my favorite, Artemisia Gentileschi. She is an Italian Baroque painter and considered among the most accomplished 17th century artists, and also a lady, so big props there. She is known for her work featuring women and her use of light and color to depict naturalism as well as drama. And I love reading historical fiction, and I really enjoyed The Passion of Artemisia by Susan Vreeland. And Susan Vreeland writes a lot of wonderful historical fiction books about actual artists. And another favorite is The Forest Lover, which is about Canadian artist Emily Carr. But back to cats and back to Jennifer.
And back to Vermeer. So we run into Vermeer, or we have run into Vermeer kind of a lot. Like our first show, we saw an echo of Vermeer in a photo that Rosetta did. The second show was, I believe it was Scene de Crime that we were commenting. And now this one. So we're gonna have to post kind of our Vermeer reference series on Facebook just as a follow-up. But I mean, look at this. This is what's crazy to me is that it is colored pencil. just to start off with. And like every cat person out there is definitely looking at those ears like, that's the sun shining through a kitty cat's ears. Like the little fuzz halo and all the texture coming off the little white fur and the ear fuzz, and it's just perfect. And like, and now that I'm thinking of the title itself, it definitely kind of gives the air of, you know, like that human sort of totally interrupted me in my sunbeam and just, do you mind? Like just that whole sass, like I was having my moment.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling right there.
Even that little paw looks like it's kind of ready to just smack.
Like, oh.
Yeah. All right.
Next piece is called I Feel Good. And I've been needing to remind myself that these works are all colored pencil. Like as I've been looking at them, I keep forgetting that it's colored pencil. And apparently, little history lesson, wax crayons date back to the Golden Age in Greece, which I then also had to look up, which is 4th and 5th century BC. And what is referred to now as artist quality colored pencils may very well be the brand that you are familiar with, maybe in your crafting box right now, are those Faber-Castells, if I'm saying that right. And they made colored pencils kind of legitimate in 1908 with an original palette of 60 colors. And I dug further into colored pencils and learned about watercolor pencils, which is super interesting. And I don't know that this was the application here necessarily.
I think she's a pretty specific colored pencil purist, but watercolor pencils are cool. What did you find out about watercolor pencils?
So like in the wet application, the artist first lays down the dry pigment and then follows up with a damp paintbrush to like intensify and spread the colors out a little bit like a watercolor would. And sometimes they just use both techniques. So, and there's a bunch of different techniques. And we talked, Jennifer specifically uses layering. And then there's burnishing, roughening, scoring patterns, and fusing colors, which you probably know a little bit more about than I do. I'd never really considered like the versatility of a colored pencil as a medium, you know, and looking at Jennifer's work made me curious about it. And I keep having to look at her pieces and again, just reminding myself that this glorious Chindra kitten yawn is pencil.
Yeah, and I know it's a yawn, but you know, I'm gonna say these days in light of everything, it reminds me of a good primal scream. I know I had a really rowdy primal scream this morning. Again, the texture is just absolutely exquisite. The teeth and the mouth, I mean, you can see all of those, like the texture of the tongue, and you can almost feel the tongue. And that tiny little droplet, you know, she mentioned earlier, she likes to do water, and you see that little droplet on the whiskers. It's just so delicate and fine. To understand the level of detail and time, she shared she will spend anywhere from 20 to 120 hours on any given piece before completion. And I do want to quick give a shout out. Rubie Kelly is here with us. And Rubie, we are so happy you can join us all the way from the UK. We're very excited to have you. And I'm going to move on to the next piece, which is hilarious and beautiful. And it's called I Concur. And it's wee, it's a little tiny. It's 4x6, so postcard size.
It's wee, like Heather.
Fun size, yes.
I love small art. It's fun to have and fun to find in the wild and on a wall. There's also kind of a lighter sense about it in a commitment to the space on your wall. And like when you're thinking about getting a piece that's like 4 feet wide, it's a totally different mindset from getting something that's like the size of a postcard.
When it draws, you know, a small piece draws you in too. You know, once you put it up on the wall, you know, you can have a giant piece and you can stand back and look at it, but with a small one, you're going to lean in and it's going to become more of an intimate or personal experience. So there is something fun about the small.
Yeah, and there's almost like something purposeful in that. Like I would say, like it would be something that because you have to engage. It's not like all up in your face. Like you have to make the move to get a little closer in.
Right.
So now we must, like, since I went super long into like colored pencils and things, I will need to talk about the blep that is happening here. And I just want to make sure our glorious audience is familiar with the term blep. It is the moment you see your animal with their tongue sticking out only just slightly. So wait, Heather, let's demonstrate.
Okay,
And yes, at first I was a bit taken aback by this kitten's face, but as you said, Jennifer's cat is blind. And I definitely say this is her baby Iris. And this is my little soapbox moment. And this reminds me, there are those that go for breeds, which is fine. And there are those that go and look to help the shyest or the runt, or even go several steps further and take in a kitty with health issues, like being blind or FIV or any number of things. And I would encourage you guys to seek out and support places that care for and find homes for these animals. They're really everywhere. An example for you that's in Portland, and two that stand out in my mind are Pixie Project and House of Dreams. And while I may not be able to adopt a special needs cat, I can certainly go to their annual holiday craft bazaar, or like their Facebook posts, or send $50 every once in a while so that they can buy new towels or whatever it is. They usually have wish lists on Amazon, stuff like that. So there are some outstanding organizations out there, and every little bit helps. So if you're so inclined, seek them out and support them in whatever way that you can. So I'm going to step off the backing away from the soapbox and back to beautiful Iris. So this can be on your wall. So find a cute little small space, and this epic blep is forever yours.
It is $200. I think our video may be obscuring the price. And I see that, Jennifer is here with us, which is fantastic. So hello, Jennifer. Just in time, unfortunately, for us to be wrapping up and moving on. You can view more of Jennifer's work on Facebook at JP Carpenter Art, or you can email her at jpcarpenterart@gmail.com.
Thank you, Jennifer. We enjoyed exploring your work. So our next artist is co-founder and co-host, the fun-sized Heather Humbert, originally from Chicago. Heather, as you can tell, I am also. Heather is based in St. Paul, Minnesota. This here kitty is her boy, Frank, and I adore that piece behind him with the murder of chunky little crows.
Yes.
We had that piece in our last show, I think, and I was just I think I was oozing about, there's almost a lavender, sort of gray lavender going on in the clouds in the back.
Yes.
And earlier, Heather mentioned that she was a high school art class dropout, and she failed to mention that she went on to earn a degree in studio art from Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. And this spring, Heather got an art studio in Northeast Minneapolis. Super exciting.
It is very exciting.
Plans to host open houses, and the building itself hosts several events throughout the year. It's sort of like the arts district, right, for Minneapolis?
Northeast is the arts district, and each building has their own special events. The Art Block building, which I am located in, they do a big fall festival every year. So it's typically the weekend before Thanksgiving. And right now, all signs are a go unless, some new crazy COVID something happens. But right now the plan is that we'll do the fall festival. So.
Well, at some point we will have to host from the studio.
Ooh, that would be exciting.
In person, because we're feral at the moment.
We're all feral right now. Yes.
So Heather cites her daughters, cats, neighborhood wildlife, and strong female friends as constant muses. And she spent the last year focusing on art, creating many new pieces outside of her comfort zone, loving the challenge. And she works primarily in acrylic paints and loves to paint toys, flowers, people, and animals. And if you've been joining us for our shows along the way, Heather is into toys. So it's no surprise really that she had the urge to play dress up with one of her fur babes.
Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. So this piece is titled Pretty in Pink, and it is in honor of my late great cat, Misia, named for the aforementioned Artemisia gentileschi. Misia was one of my first cats because, of course, I couldn't leave the shelter with just one. When I walked in, she was sitting in the middle of the shelter, this angry little potato hissing and swiping at all of the other cats. And the shelter folks assured me that, she was new and she was stressed and she was just lovely. And so I took her home, and they were very wrong. She remained pretty ornery until the end. Over the years, she lived with 4 other cats, my 2 children, And she was 18 years old when she passed away. So she lived a very good, long life. And I loved her so much. So towards the end, she did become much more patient. And the only reason that this painting exists is because she didn't chew my arm off. But I had somebody who was teasing me one day about, are you one of those crazy people that dresses their cats up? And I didn't, but I did not want to miss the opportunity to fly my weird flag. So I dressed up the cat in this lovely little leopard fleece robe that my grandmother made for my daughter's doll. So it's the one and only time I've dressed up one of my cats as an adult. But this next piece after this does make me maybe reconsider that choice. But I will say in this piece, painting fur and adding fleece, it was a good challenge for me because, as we saw in some of the other artists, or in Jennifer anyhow, and we'll see later, they get those crisp lines. And so this one was a little bit softer. And lately I've been painting a lot of birds. And so that's been a learning curve. How do I best paint those feathers? So my 3 cats pieces today all have a slightly different approach to how I painted the fur. And as I expand my animal catalog, I'm really enjoying learning new techniques and way to paint the different textures of animals.
Yeah, and what's cool about all the works that we're looking at today is this, like, being able to kind of view it in looking at the shift in medium for same subject throughout for everybody. And like, we're going from colored pencil to acrylic, and later we're going to get into fire and water. So just noticing the challenge even of whiskers, or like how to use like white. I mean, white in and of itself is a challenge. Just to layer that on and give it whatever it is, whatever form it's supposed to be taking, especially for white fur on kittens. But what's weird is that I was kind of thinking that it's been a while since we had any kind of Star Wars reference.
I know, right? Right? It's been at least what, 1 show, 2 shows? Every show.
No, every show.
Every show needs a Star Wars reference. I've had one in every show. So I call this next magical piece the Imperial Death Stare. And it makes me laugh every time I look at it. So I hope that you are all laughing too. That's the point of this piece. This handsome boy is Odin, and he was a Tonkinese, a breed that I had never heard of before. And he was absolutely the sweetest cat who would jump on your shoulder, and he actually would take his little paws and give you a hug, which is, being so sweet, it kind of adds this extra layer of humor to me because he just looks like he's going to rip your face off here. So one of my very best friends had Odin, and she has a Westie. And so she's very fond of dressing up her critters. They have little Packers jerseys for football games. They have little holiday sweaters. And so I was out and about and found this fantastic Darth Vader dog costume. And so I sent it to her, and it was a little too snug for Henry, so she thought she would try it on Odin. And Odin really, I feel, captures the dark side vibe here. He's pretty serious. So I'm hoping maybe what I can do is post the original 2 photos as well as this painting on our Facebook page, so you can appreciate the total comparison of cat versus dog personality. And I may eventually have to do a companion piece featuring Henry the dog for the full effect. But I think this is a pretty intense standalone piece right now. And, as you were talking about white being difficult to paint, I love the challenge here of the black fabric. And I don't have quite 50 shades of gray, but I have 6 and 2 different shades of black. And so it's how you work those to get the flow and the texture of the fabric. So we're going to move from Mr. Odin to Freya in an inadvertent Norse theme that I've created here. Who knew? We're hoping for cold. Maybe that's it. The next piece, this piece is called Cats of the Goddess, and it features the Norse goddess Freya's cats. And I first learned about Freya's cats last year when I was working on a depiction of her for a show I participated in called Gods and Monsters. And in my research, I learned that Freya is known for having a chariot pulled by 2 giant cats, and they're typically gray or blue. And so often the cats were a gift from Thor, and they are often seen as Norwegian forest cats. But I thought my great big Frank made a pretty good substitute for that. You know, he's 18 pounds, he's pretty solid. So in this, I love the intensity, particularly the one cat licking his chops, like maybe they're going to eat us. They're pretty serious. And then I felt that adding the gold background really highlighted the blues, but also alludes to kind of their otherworldly status. And I think it gives it kind of an air of being an old piece, almost like a religious relic or like an altar piece.
It does. It's kind of got a bronzing effect from how I can see it. And I'm a huge fan of this color combo. And I've never heard, I can't believe I hadn't heard the lore before, because that's a super cool story. Like, who wouldn't want to be Freya? But I would say, like, I mean, yes, it looks like the cat is going to devour us, but at the same time, like, I'm seeing as like being the crazy cat lady that I am. Like, this is like post noms, like licking chops, and like, yeah, that was a tasty dinner kind of a thing. But I have to think that like part of the adventure in painting or any sort of like creation, especially for shows like this, like, is just the discovery process of a theme, or like the inspiration itself, and just peeling back the layers and going down all the different rabbit holes. Yes. While playing with the concept itself.
Yes, it is. I love the rabbit hole, and that's why I love that we are doing these shows with themes, because it also kind of not forces me, but makes me start to think about other things and other concepts and other ideas. So that's why I'm so happy we get to do this. So I am also happy, but also sad to say this piece is already sold. But I am going to try and make some prints if I can get the gold to cooperate a little bit better when I take photos or get it scanned. So I'm everywhere. You can find me on Facebook at HLHArtMN. I'm on Instagram at HLH_art_MN. You can email me at hlh.art.llc@gmail.com. Or I now have a website, a very fancy website that my lovely sister Beth helped me set up, hlhart.com. I also love collaborating on commissions. And I have a tab on my website menu where you can view all of the wide variety of commission work that I've taken on, people, toys, flowers. So let's get creative together. So our next artist who is joining us, which is so fantastic, is coming to us all the way from Derby in the UK. Rubie Kelly is making her stick figure arts debut with an amazing piece that we will check on in a hot minute, which is a little foreshadowing. This sassy cat is Ruckus, and Rubie tells us Ruckus likes to start fights with her when she's working out or walking up the stairs, and she sometimes even needs to fend the kitty off with pillows till she calms down, which that's kind of intense, and Ruckus appears to be a good name. Rubie is a pyrographer.
Like, you kind of like, you almost predetermine what kind of a cat it's going to be when you name your cat. Like, I feel like you need to be careful with stuff like that. Because I'd like, when Bruce was a baby, I called him Bruce the Big Black Bear, and now he's 22.3 pounds.
See, yes. I had a friend who had a dog they named Chaos, and it was Chaos.
Oh, really?
It was Chaos. So Rubie is a pyrographer and started the art of pyrography after her dog walking and pet sitting business had to close due to COVID. And she says she has not turned back. She used to paint, but has found this to be her new favorite medium. And she particularly loves making memorial pieces for people. She said her general process begins with picking the right kind of wood for the job, sanding it at a 40 grit and then a 600 grit. And then the wood is ready for burning, often using nature photography for inspiration. She notes that coffee is a very important part throughout her process. And Rubie girl, I feel you. I paint with iced tea, coffee, and an adult beverage on occasion. A drink is very important to my creativity. And a pro tip though, for all the painters, keep the beverage cup away from the paint water. So I've consumed probably more paint water than I should in a lifetime. Probably explains a lot. So she tells us she's only burned herself a few times, but that her hair takes the most hits. So maybe after this, we need to send this woman some scrunchies, Meg.
Yes, for sure. And Rubie's piece is called Horizon Eyes. And yes, that is wood that she has burned or essentially etched into the wood with fire. And you may be thinking pyrography, also known as pyrogravure, is a fancy word for wood burning, but the difference is that pyrography is done on any receptive surface and not just wood. The term literally means writing with fire. So it's like the coolest thing ever.
So pyrography has been documented in many cultures dating back to early civilization, like the ancient Egyptians. The Han Dynasty in China referred to it as fire needle embroidery, which is very fancy. And the Victorian era saw a surge in interest in pyrography. And, you know, recently I've seen a lot of wood burning and wood burn pieces popping up. I think a lot of that has to do with the use of lasers though. And my understanding is this is not, lasers were not used here, but I know that often, you know, that's something we've been seeing a lot more of. And wood is a super funky medium, and it has a life of its own. I mean, it was a living thing at one point. As a former printmaker, I created several woodcuts, and when you're doing a woodcut, you want to cut into the grain, and sometimes as you're cutting, the grain just, you go with it, and then whoop, and the whole piece is done. Like you've ruined it. So you have to be very intentional with how you work with it. And so in printmaking, there's wood cuts and wood engraving, and wood engraving uses the end grain, which is a lot harder, but you can get finer detail. You know, you're not doing big cuts, you're making little scratches. And I'm guessing, Rubie, and I know it's so late, and bless you for being here. I'm assuming that the grain plays a large part in your process, because I would think you have to go against it at some time, and that might, you know, adjust how you're making those marks. And I don't know, this piece is just so amazing. I mean, if you look closely, you can see even in the eyes, kind of where the grain and the wood is there, but the detail is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and like the challenge that I hadn't really thought of, like you said, is, you know, wood is not necessarily going to be like your friend and do exactly what you want. So the fact that she was able to capture that perfect itty bitty, like, I mean, granted is that, you know, it's a tiger, but like, I mean, just those, like the flow of the little nose hairs, that is obviously, again, any cat lady would know that that is spot on. But it's got to be a huge challenge. I would imagine too that you would obviously either choose the wood for whatever it is that you wanted to do. Maybe like beech is easier to work with for something as opposed to like cedar or whatever. And something too, when I first looked at this and the description said waney edge, beechwood, I thought, like, at first I thought waney was like a quirky little like UK thing, mate, you know, but it's a real thing.
It is a real thing. And actually, I love the fact that there is that, as I point at the screen, you don't need me pointing at the screen, but there's that little edge that you can kind of see peeking behind. So you can see the rough edge. And that's really is just a piece of wood, and not just, but a piece of wood. And it's also on the smaller side as well. You know, it's 10.5 by 9 inches. Rubie has shared that basswood is best, but not available in the UK. And she also did say when wood burning, yes, she swears quite often. So I'm sure, you know, it's there, it's that fine detail work, and it's just so impressive. So you can view
a lovely piece when you think about like that she does commission work and that she enjoys doing like memorial pieces and things like that. Like, what a cool way to memorialize like your biddy, you know?
Yeah. Yes. So you can view more of Rubie's wood creations on Facebook at mkelly.woodworks, which, FYI, if you enter that, it does view as Kelly Woodwork and Pyrography. So you have gone to the right place. She's also on Instagram at kelly.pyrography, and she has an Etsy shop, Kelly Pyro Woodworks. And I love the fact we have a person who likes to play with fire. That's so cool. Yes. So
I didn't struggle with the word pyrography.
It's a tricky one to say. It is.
I practiced, I've got to admit. And thanks for staying up late, Rubie.
Yes, thank you, Rubie. You're awesome.
So we're headed now back to the States, to Hatfield, Massachusetts, to visit with Diane Savino's work. And Diane holds a Master's of Fine Arts from Vermont College of Norwich University and a Master's in Education from Hartford Art School, a Bachelor's from Westfield State College. Diane is a former art professor at Anna Maria College and is also an independent curator who has orchestrated many exhibits for members of the Society of Tempera Painters. And her work has been profiled in American Art Collector, Art New England, American Artist, and Artscope magazines. Diane considers herself a visual storyteller, and she shared with us that her works tell new stories about the interconnection between nature and humans. Oh, and this handsome boy is Toby. Toby is her daughter's cat. Her daughter and her daughter's fiance brought him to his forever home,
Forever.
from the Westfield Homeless Cat Project. Diane created this next lovely piece called Dreams of the Forest using egg tempera and gold leaf. And this is our second stick figure artist to use gold leaf. And for those of you that missed the November 2020 show Procession, where we highlighted the gold leafing process, that was one of Cena de Crime's pieces. The cliff notes for the process is basically that if you're curious or if you have a terrible memory, like me. Gold leafing has traditionally been done with garlic glue, but there are several types of glue, ranging from traditional garlic to honey to rabbit skin. Sorry, vegans. The type of glue was always, as you can imagine, would be dependent on the material that's being used too.
So yes, so that is, the gold leaf portion. Let's talk about the egg tempera. This is a totally new medium for us to talk about, which is really cool. I actually love that we have all of these new mediums to share with you tonight. Diane mixes her own paints, which involves mixing powdered pigments with an egg yolk, which has been removed from the sack, which I'm sure is not an easy task, and then adding water. And she paints using small little strokes of color and sponging and glazing to create her painted image. And I should add, prior to laying down the paint, she begins by preparing a masonite panel with homemade glue and gesso, which is warmed on the stove. And she will strive for a smooth panel and then begins by drawing her image on the panel with a silver point and sometimes enhances the value with India ink. I was doing some research and learned that homemade egg tempera can only be used for a single painting session because the tempered pigment sits and the yolks begin to cure. And so it becomes thicker and more difficult to paint with. And as the water evaporates, it actually changes the chemical composition. So it's definitely a tricky, I thought acrylic was fast drying, but this sounds like a real challenge. Egg tempera kind of peaked in the Renaissance as oil paint came about and brought more versatility, but egg tempera is known for producing a jewel-like quality in paintings. And even though it's labor intensive, there's still a different beauty that comes from the paint. And, talking about the jewel-like quality, you can definitely, the colors in this are just so vibrant and beautiful.
Yeah, and there is a different beauty that comes from this paint. And like the colors are really just juicy, and I don't think the juicy is even the right, jewel tones is absolutely the right way to describe it. And it's interesting, like, just to think about the process of making tempera paint in the sense of like the yolk, you telling me about this earlier, like the yolk itself, you'd have to work with that depth of color of the yolk and turn that into a different color. And so that's where I can really see where this blue would come from, given that the starting point was an orange little yolk.
Right. When she talks about like making little strokes, you can definitely see that in the red and orangish leaf, but then obviously in the fur as well, all of those delicate little lines.
Right. And like all of this is cast by like a totally different medium and technique, like we were talking about before. And like, I love the eye on the right too. It has that elder kitty glaucoma reflection of light. Like there's really something special. Yeah, and Rubie just said it too. There's really something special about those kitty eyes. It's perfect.
Well, and she has that coloration, when you look at Kat's eyes, there are just the different striations of color, and she has it right on in there, which is amazing. Just absolutely beautiful. You can follow Diane on Facebook at diane.savino.3 and on Instagram at Diane Savino Art.
And now we're off to my neck of the woods, to the capital of Washington State, which is, it's right there on the screen. It's Olympia. Suzanne Shepherd is a tattoo artist and has been tattooing for over 20 years. Needless to say, she has been an artist her whole life. She and her wife are pioneers in the industry. They founded Primeval Ink Tattoo in '97 as one of 3 women-owned shops in the state. Suzanne likes to do watercolor paintings and watercolor style tattoos, which sounds super badass, but also paints in acrylic. So she shared, she once created a watercolor painting every day for 90 days, which I love that idea. Like there was, I think that there was a Halloween project I did last year, and I'm not, you know, you're the artist, not like you're the artist, but I'm definitely more, for me, art is a spectator sport in a way. But like I did a stick figure drawing every day for 30 days because I really enjoyed drawing stick figures. But like those kind of projects are good. They're good to sort of exercise and do something different with your brain. Like whether you're an artist or you're just a regular human being, like you be creative and do something different, right?
Yes, it's good for you.
Yeah. And even like you could try different mediums. If you don't, and if you always do acrylic, you could try watercolor, color pencils or something. I'm gonna get you those. So this itty furball is Pogi. Pogi is seated next to what may be the greatest lawn decor of all time because that is a cat that is bird watching. Okay. So Suzanne shared that in addition to Pogi, they recently expanded their fur family and adopted 3 kittens from Valhalla Rescue, thank you, and added 2 pygmy goats to the family. So they got a gold star on their Pacific Northwest report card for the goats and a gold star from the angels for the rescue of the kitties.
I want goats, but I can't have goats here. So
Why can't you have goats there?
we can have chickens, not goats, because I live in the city proper and they frown on that. So no fun zone. Suzanne's colorful and vibrant watercolor Grendel is a piece that she made for her sister, and it's so stinking cute. So she tells us the story of Grendel. He was very, very sick, and Suzanne painted this for her sister because they thought he only maybe had a week or so to live. And she said when they took him in, even the vet was crying because since kittenhood, he had had a lot of health issues and conditions and required all these trips to the vet. And the vet also had become very fond of him, and everybody pretty much loved this little guy, and he was super affectionate. And plot twist, he got better. So Suzanne said it was really amazing and wonderful that little Grendel is feeling almost perfectly healthy now. So the painting is from a photo of him sitting on his favorite stool in her sister's kitchen. And I have to say, I want to go to her sister's kitchen because that is amazing. I love, love, love the color in this piece. And that far right corner reminds me of this beautiful painting. It's a brightly colored piece actually by Claude Monet called The Japanese Bridge that we have here in Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. And I've always loved it because it's so bright. You know, when I think of his work, I think of muted and pastels. And this piece also is a little bit reminiscent to me of like a Paul Klee or Marc Chagall with the playfulness as well as the colors too. And my other favorite is this pink outline that she does around Grendel. And there's a contemporary artist that I've been racking my brains trying to remember who it is. And they have a piece at the Art Institute in Chicago, and I cannot remember. But just that line gives it, I think, that much more almost movement to it.
Yeah, I feel like that little line, the little outline, you're not thinking like Keith Haring, are you?
No. But he does have those little lines.
But I feel like the kitty outline for me is almost like, especially given the like kind of the background of the story or whatever, it's like the aura. It's like Grendel's aura of being like bold and affectionate and just a good, a good little kitty.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Monet, I can totally see Monet, although I don't know Japanese Bridge. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that because you're right. When I think of Monet, I have all like almost that stereotypical Monet, like the wash of blues and whatever, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I see a little bit of in the positioning of things and that they're sort of like odd. Not odd, but like in like it's kind of Van Gogh to me, the way things are sitting.
The perspective.
Thank you. That's the word. I would like to remind everyone it is 109 degrees.
Oh, good. It's all good.
But the other thing that I see too is sort of in the way that the kitty is looking like directly at you is the Edvard Munch thing, the scream guy. But and in general, I'd say again, like consistency, like with all of these pieces, just like considering, that this is watercolor, and see how the whiskers are done, and like you can see like the fur, and when you think about watercolor, this is again not that sort of washed out thing that would come to mind. This is color saturated, this is texture, this is all kinds of things.
Yeah, I think watercolor kind of gets a bad rap. We think of it as a really washed out medium. A lot of times we liken it to older people, which isn't a bad thing, but we just don't think of the bright and the vibrant. And actually my college professor, and I like to consider her my mentor, uses a lot of beautiful, crazy bright colors. And, it was in her class that I learned that you can do this with watercolor. And most of us have experienced watercolor probably in school, and we're used to our little, I don't know, 9 to 12 colors, Prang or Crayola, and they're not a high quality. And that's the one thing to keep in mind too. I mean, short of Diane, who's making her own color because she's extra fancy, we're all using artist quality or professional quality art materials. And so there really is a difference. Between a $5 tube of paint and a $22 tube of paint. And it's also too, we think of watercolor, it's a wash, it's washed out, and you can really get those bright, vibrant colors by using less water. Particularly, you mentioned the fur, and looking at those little lines in the area that's kind of gray where you see those black lines. There's a technique in watercolor called dry brushing. And so you dip your dry brush into a paint that is not super saturated with water. It's almost a little bit of a paste or a little bit of a goo to it. And you dip the brush in, and then you can like get that stiff brush, and it helps make those lines. So I do wonder if maybe that's something that a technique that she used here. But yeah, watercolor it's a lot more versatile and beautiful and vibrant, I think, than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Well, you can shoot Suzanne an email at suzanne49@earthlink.net, or scoot on over to Instagram and check out Primeval Ink.
Or just go to Olympia and get a watercolor tattoo.
There you go. Yeah, for sure.
So we want to thank all of our artists again: Jennifer Carpenter, Heather Humbert, Rubie Kelly, Diane Savino, and Suzanne Shepherd. We're thrilled. We had so much fun with this today.
We did. This was super fun to put together. We are also so grateful for all the kitties that inspire us every day. So here we have Alex and Bill, who are part of my crew. We have Zazie, who is companion to Iris and Jennifer, and Mew, who is named after the Pokemon character because she makes the same noise and looks a little bit like a Pokemon. And she has the privilege of sleeping on the lovely Rubie's pillow. And last but not least, Meg.
We have my crew, right? We're dead center with, we have Spooky, also known as Ma Pooks, the mother of the tiger pictured here, named Sir Edmund Hillary. And yes, he has mad climbing skills. And baby brother from her other litter is Bruce the Big Black Bear. Pookie and Edmund were born on the streets of Jersey, and we took them in, and surprise, Pooks was pregnant, and out came Bruce, So the lack of services for feral kitties specifically, and the prominence of them in my neighborhood kind of spurned my waking up to the issue of animal welfare, and thus began my adventure in nonprofits. Speaking of which, we want to give a shout out to our artists' favorite rescues, doing the hard, good work, getting these babies off the streets and into their forever homes. Check them out. When you have a minute, go to the sites, like their pages, make a donation, go to their silly little art fairs. And we will post all this information on our Facebook page following the show. Remember to seek out your own local places and support them however you can.
Yes. our fourth virtual show, which will be this fall. The theme will be Goblins, Ghosts, and Witches. Yes, I know, spooky. We will be putting out our call for art shortly. The deadline, as you can see, is October 10th, and the show will be on November 7th. So we hope that you will all join us again for our next round of art, history, humor, technique, and this time all things spooky. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, shoot us an email, and we would love to hear from you.
Yes, and a quick note. So thank you for joining us tonight. Heather and I both noted that we have a little prolonged pandemic exhaustion going on. And doing this show in many ways helped us both kind of refocus on something wonderful and important like art. So just a reminder to be easy on yourself as we all start coming back out of the caves, and be super nice to each other. Give yourself and others a little extra space and love, and enjoy your summer.
Yes, and we will see you all in November, hopefully. So thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye. Shout out to Delia's mug. What?
I think we're still live, Meg.
I don't care.
All
I'm
right.
still
Shout out to Delia's mug.